Hey quilting friends, it's me Tracy. I have a question for you. Do you have a bag of hexagons just sitting around, or maybe it's a little lunchbox like I've got with just dozens of hexagons that are already basted, but you haven't done anything with them because perhaps you don't like sewing them together by hand, or maybe your hands hurt too much. How would you like a way to sew them together so you get little rosettes like this, or even ones like this with intricate shapes? However, you do all of the joining by machine. Well, if you're intrigued, join me today and I'll show you how. Okay, before we start, I just want to preface this. I did not invent this technique. About 10 years ago, I saw a video done by the owner of a store in California that's called Cotton and Chocolate. And she was at a show doing a demo, and they just happened to film it that showed how to join hexagons using clear thread in your machine and a small zigzag stitch. And it could help you create a grandmother's flower garden quilt in no time at all. Well, I became obsessed with this idea because I love glue basting my hexagons. However, I don't love sewing them together by hand. It just takes too long, and days like today where my hands are swollen, it just isn't the best option for me. So I started testing out a whole bunch of different things, and on this one you can even see that I tested them all out on one block, where I cut out my own shapes using a manila envelope. But then out here, what I used was a wash away stabilizer that you can actually print and cut or run through a die cutter like an AccuQuilt. And then you don't even have to take those out of the piece, you just leave them in, and when you wash it, it breaks down a little bit and becomes fuzzy, kind of like your batting. Easy peasy. So there are multiple techniques for doing this, but I am going to show you just the basics today so that you can get started doing your own English paper piecing by machine. Will you join me? Okay, as you notice, I dressed for the occasion. I decided to create my very own Christmas shirt. So this is Christmas. If you're interested, there's a link below. You can get one too, and we can be twins. It comes in 6 different colors, I think. So next step, there are going to be several things that I want to show you. Let's start with how I transport things. So I have a little Doctor Who lunchbox that I got somewhere years ago. I just liked that it was small and that it had a handle on the top, and I could take it with me places or leave it in the car. And I actually currently have a little bag that I had stuffed a bunch of hexagons in here to take on a plane. But you can see that I basically just have a bunch of hexagons in there that are already done, and several that are just ready to be done that are just cut, and then a stack of paper pieces. The ones that I'm doing are let's see, pretty sure these are actually 1 inch. Let me just double check that these are all 1 inch. These are all 1 inch sides. The way that you measure a hexagon is by how big the sides are. The most popular side, I believe, is 1.5 inches. I think I just started with these because that's what I had. In the future, if I do a big quilt, I probably will do the 1.5 or maybe even 2 inches, so that it's nice and big. Another option that you have is I just have a big zipper bag. This one I got from Moda, and I have used it for years as sort of my to-go sewing bag, especially when I travel. I can't bring this when I travel because it doesn't go through TSA because it's metal, but these do, and so I can usually carry this on the plane. I make sure I don't have any big scissors in here. It usually never it just has snips ever in this bag. And then I usually have, you know, little scissors, needles, glue. I honestly pack this one a lot for when I go to market or festival and bring it just in case someone needs something. And I always have it in my bag to go. All right, now the next thing I promised I was going to show you was this. And I came up with a solution for that piece that broke off. So this is a Tack-it-Easy. It is created by a company in Australia. Katie Dawson is the person who invented this, and her company is, I need my glasses. Right in front of me. All right, and her company is Cottage Garden Threads. You can go to cottagegardenthreads.com. I am certain that she has a list of who sells this in the United States now. She was at market, and I know that I saw pictures of her with paper pieces from Paducah, Kentucky, and so I'm sure that they are going to be carrying it. I'm going to guess that they've created some sort of partnership. Maybe they're distributing it for her, but this is a really wonderful product. So what I purchased was this is set A, and it comes with 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4, 2 inches. It comes on a little ring that you can just open up like this, and you can take off the size that you want. And then, as I mentioned to you before, I picked it up. Now there are words printed on or etched, I guess, on the back side of it. And I assumed it was the front, and I bent it towards the words, and it just cracked. You have to bend it in the way that it is supposed to be bent, otherwise it's fragile. So there you go. But otherwise, I have used this thing over and over and over again. I even got a little glue on it yesterday when I was using it, and it's still fine. It still works like a charm. Okay, so the other thing that I promised I would show you was this precision glue tip that I have never even used before. So we're going to try it out today. I'm going to show you the card of the person. It's a little squished in here, but Glue Stick Precision Tip by Krebsbach Huber Crafts. And I'll check and see if this is still available. I bought mine from Paper Pieces in Paducah, Kentucky. So that is where I got it. Sorry for the crinkling. But basically, you take Elmer's glue. I try and buy these packages when it is back to school time, and you can get a really good deal on it. This one's the school glue that's washable, but any of the Elmer's products work. And I'm just gonna show that you can put it on top, and I'll do a close-up of this. But the cool thing is that the lid pops right on the top like so. Snappy. Cool. So we're going to switch cameras to my overhead camera, and I'll show you some of the up-close things that we've been talking about. Okay, so I wanted to let you know that you can use really any kind of glue stick. I have a Soline here. I have a Roxanne glue stick. I haven't even tried this one yet, but I'm certain that it works. I love the Quilter Select glue stick, which I cannot find for the life of me today, so we're just going to move on. But I also wanted to test out using a normal Elmer's glue stick. Now, I'm going to show you that you don't even need this little tip. You could just use the glue stick. What you do is you take a hexagon that's the right size, you match it with the correct size of the Tack-it-Easy. Note that there's a number here that, I don't know if you can see that. There's a little cutout number right here that says 1, so I know that's a 1 inch. This is my you know, very rudimentary repair of the part that I accidentally ripped off, but it still works just fine. I just made sure that I could still move it like this when I glued it or when I taped it. So now I am going to take my hexagon, my fabric hexagon, and I'm going to put it in here. Now what I normally do, because once you cover it, you can't really see where the paper goes. So what I do is I usually lay it right in the middle, and then I test it out. I make sure that on at least two sides, you know, opposite each other, I can fold it up, and that's essentially how it works. But I'm going to take just your average school glue stick, and I'm going to do the first pass. So what I do is I rub the glue here and then fold it like that. I don't get any glue on my fingers this way. And this is just super easy. When I'm doing it, I try to get the edge of the fabric a little bit so that it sticks to itself here. So it's a little better than right there where it, but if you accidentally don't catch the whole thing, you can always go back and fix it. And you can see now why I have glue all over the Tack-it-Easy tool itself. All right, close enough. But the nice thing about using this tool, you can definitely do it without it, and I'll show you how to do it without it, but it is exactly perfect every single time. And that's what I love about it, which makes the sewing together part super easy. If you've done any English paper piecing, then you know what it's like when perhaps one side is a little bit loose or another side has, you know, a little bit uneven where it's squished in the center, or maybe it's skewed a little bit and they don't like to butt up together, so you kind of have to force it. But this way it comes out the exact same way every single time. Okay, this time I'm going to do it again. However, I'm going to use the precision glue tip tool, and you can put a little piece of a little dab underneath if you want to hold the fabric in place, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make sure that I've got two sides that sort of go together. Make sure it's all even. Perfect. And you can see that I don't have it, you know, the fabric perfectly centered, and that's okay too. Look at me putting it upside down like that. Goodness. All right, so we are going to snap this on, and then we just push the glue up. And I can feel that it's hit the thing. It's trying to, it's trying to push off of the top, which maybe, oh, look at that. Holy cow. All right, let's go. I wish I could, now I'm feeling like I need to back off a little. Oh, look at that. You can back off a little. Nice. I just want to make sure it's on tight. Okay. So I'm going to carefully dab this so as not to get it everywhere, but oh my gosh, it's still solid, so it's fine. And remember, because this is Elmer's, it just washes out, so it's no big deal if it if you get a little bit too much on there. It's just starch, so it will still work just fine. Now, you see this side's a little bit skinnier of a seam allowance, and that's totally fine. It squished a little bit. This glue stick is lovely because it's nice and soft. All right, so there we go. All right, the part where I've got the tape is a little bit sticky from yesterday, and that's it. I snap it on and then I can throw it in my bag. I am pretty happy with this. I probably need to tweak it a little bit, but I wanted to show you from the beginning of how it works so that you could see for yourself if this is something that you're interested in. I'm gonna go wipe off the edge of that tape so that it isn't as sticky, but you can see that that worked really well. So there you go. Not perfect and totally fine. It's gonna work exactly for what I need. I'm going to do one more, and I'm just going to show you how I normally glue baste. Now you can also glue, sew baste these. It's no big deal. All right, so I've got my hexagon. I've got my sort of, mildly centered. This one is blue, but it dries clear. And then I just put a little bit of glue on and fold it over, as so. I'm having quite a puffy hand day, so this isn't as ideal for me today to do it. It's kind of better if I do it maybe in my hands instead of on the table. All right. And this is what I take with me places sometimes, like if I'm on the plane or in the car for a bit, I'll bring these with me and I'll just work on them because it gives me something to do with my hands that I don't have to be quite so precise as I would if I was hand sewing something. So there you go. Just as easy, a little slower maybe, but I think that works just as well. I wanted to show you a few of my partial blocks and wanted to show you what it looks like when you use white thread versus clear thread. So these are some examples. This one you can see right here that I used white thread for the whole thing. You can just barely see my tiny, tiny zigzag. And you can also see that I wasn't even incredibly perfect, but it's not going to matter. When this gets popped out of the paper gets popped out and it gets stitched into something and then quilted, you're not really going to even notice those. Now this one I did with clear thread on the top. So you can currently see that there's like a little tiny zigzag along here. And again, I really think that once it is quilted, you're not really going to see that at all. I do really like the clear. You don't have to worry about changing your thread. And as long as it's a clear thread that works well in your sewing machine, you won't have any problems at all. And then I'm going to just pull over the piece that I did that I haven't cut out yet for the stockings. But you can see that it's quilted and it's all nice and wrinkly, and you really aren't going to notice the joins. It just sort of looks like it's all part of the piece. And what I did was I just honestly did straight line quilting, crisscross through it, just did straight lines this way and then straight lines this way to create little X's in the hexagons. This was a quilting choice that I first saw by Modern Handcraft. Okay, so before we head over to the machine, I wanted to show you this little sampler that I created. Now, I just literally taped these examples to a piece of a paper pad. That this was actually even just Post-it notes, but I was working on Love of Quilting TV. I was going to be a guest and I needed to figure out exactly what settings I put everything at. Now this one was specifically for a FOF. You are going to have to figure out what works exactly for your machine. And doing something like this works wonderfully because then you can keep it as an example and remember what you did. So in this example, I showed that I did a zigzag. I used a mono on the top and a pre-wound 8-weight bobbin, and then I put my width at 1.5 and my length at 3.0. And I'm going to see if you can catch how tiny the zigzag is, but with the monofilament, you really can't see anything. This one, I used the lightning stitch because you're going to want to try different stitches on your machine to see what you like best. Now this one I used the lightning stitch. I set it to 1.5 and width and a 2.5 length. And that's not too bad. I like that we've got the light outside so you can really see. All right, this one, I did the lightning stitch. I did a 1.5 width and a 2.5 length, and I used an 80 weight thread in the top and in the bobbin. 80 weight thread is a nice option. This one, I believe I was using Quilter Select, but I know that Aurifil also has an 80 weight thread. I've used both and they're both really quite lovely. So this is something I'm kind of fond of. I don't always enjoy using the monofilament. I love that it doesn't really show, but it's not my favorite. But I also just wanted to show as closely as I can that I used white thread here. And it's really not terribly noticeable, especially if I were to do a whole quilt like this and then use white thread for quilting. I don't think it would really be that noticeable at all. All right, this one, I actually taped over the, well, I taped over the stitching, but I used an 80 weight thread. I used the hand quilting stitch on the fuff, and I set it to a 2.5 width and a 2.5 length. Now you can see that this is just as tiny, but it's because it's a different stitch. The width was really very small. All right, and now we get into where I was having a little bit of fun. Now I used the cross stitch and used 80 weight thread, and you just used a decorative stitch. Now I've only used this for small projects so far, but I could see how this could be kind of fun and different to do. But it came out really cute. And then this was a very specific foot that was just specific to the foff that I was using for the TV show. And there's a star foot that they've got. So if you've got a foff, try using the star foot. These are the widths and the lengths. I did 1.5 width, 3.0 length, and then a 1.5 and a 2.5 so that I could see the difference. And I really do like that I set them both on the same piece of paper so that you could see the difference between the width on a 3.0. Is it a width or a length? A length of a 3.0 versus a length of a 2.5. So, and honestly, really, if I glance at that, it looks to me like a hand whip stitch anyway. So that's kind of a nice thing about this technique. All right, so now we are going to head over to the machine. And now that we've gotten all of the basics of setting it up, we are going to start playing with the machine. All right, I am just looking at some of the stitches that I've got on my machine. I'm trying to get a good angle, but it's really kind of hard. So I know I've got 3 different zigzags. And then this one is a triple stitch zigzag. Oh, maybe it's just a double. And this one's a triple. And then I've got blanket stitches. And I'm just looking through here to see if there's anything else. This also might work, which is, you know, one of those little blanket stitches that goes on either side. That could also potentially work here. But anything where it's going to go across both sides, you need to catch 2 edges that are butted up against each other. Now, if you've got a foot that you can use to butt 2 things against each other, that works perfectly. However, I am just going to use my basic, it's called a J foot, but it's basically a zigzag foot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the width, and we are going to start at a 2.5, and I'm going to make the length, probably I'll leave it at 1.4. I might try 2.5 and see how that, 2.25 and see how that goes. We'll start with 2.5 and see how it goes. Okay, I grabbed a scrap of fabric and I'm just going to test out the zigzag at width of 2.5 and a length of 1.4. Just need to take a few stitches so you see an example. All right, that's a little bit big, both in width and length. So I'm going to drop it down to 2.25 and drop it down to a length of 1 millimeter. Okay, that's a little bit better. I think I might try a width of 2.0. All right, that's looking a little bit better. I think we might try that and start practicing on the Hexies and check it again. You are going to have to do this exact technique on your machine to find the right settings, and it might even be a different stitch, but whatever works for you and that you prefer. Now I've got a center for my flower, and then I've got 6 little red hexagons for the outer petals. Forgive my very puffy hands today. We've got one of my oldest friends from high school refers to as sausage fingers today, and just is what it is. So, all right. So you butt the 2 pieces up against each other like this. And then we are going to put it through the machine. I currently have my settings at 2.25 millimeters width by a 1.0 millimeter length. And we're gonna see how this goes. I've not done this on this machine, so it's going to be a little bit of a lesson. Now, I can see that my needle is over to the right and not centered. So I have a feeling we're going to go that way. So I'm going to eyeball where this needle is and where I think the start of my hexagon is. And I'm going to try and just eyeball it. I'll put the foot down so you can see what I'm eyeball it, so I could see that it's going to hit on that side of the hexagon. I'm not quite sure that I'm back far enough yet. Move it just a little bit and see if that's better. Too much. See, we're just gonna see if we can get it centered enough, and we're gonna, off we go. Let's see how we go. There we go. All right, after this one, I'm going to stop so we can take a look at what the stitch looks like and see if we like it or if we need to tweak it a little. I can already tell that I think I'm fine with it the way it is. Now I do suggest either back stitching or doing a stay stitch. So there you go. That's not too bad. I'm gonna bring it up to the, it's not too bad. I don't know that I would necessarily use this thread choice. I'm gonna trim off that little bit because I'm likely going to go all the way around and show you all. Now, you can do this on any, I think I like that. It's a little bit decorative. I could maybe make it the width a little bit smaller. Let's try 2.0 and we'll see how that goes. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is I am going to add this one here. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm gonna add this one here. Oh, the other thing is you can do twosies. You know how sometimes people call them twosies, where you're just sewing 2 squares together? You can actually, if I was going to do the next 2, I could go like this and literally line it up like this and put it through the machine like I was chain piecing. However, I am going to butt this next one right up to where I want it to go. Make sure it fits there. And then I'm going to put it through the machine just like we did before. Now I can see that the needle is on the right side of the zigzag, so I'm going to line the red up underneath the needle as best I can. And like we did before, I'm going to sort of test it a little bit by dropping it down. A little over too much. There we go. I think we're about accurate. Oh, I think I like that a little bit better. I just want to make sure, however, that now it is for some reason pushing me a little bit. You can check your pressure of your foot if you have that problem, but I think I should be okay. And then go pretty slowly, set your machine to turtle, as I like to say, so that you make sure that you're catching both sides perfectly. Now, what I can do here is I can actually just get the next piece lined up and twist it just like I would if I were doing applique, and continue on. That was actually pretty perfect. I'm gonna set my speed a little slower so I can step a little harder. Maybe that's a little, this is all the way down to the ground. Isn't that funny? So I'm gonna get the next one ready to go and butt it up and twist it just like we did the last time. I am gonna set the speed a little bit faster because I think I can. Now that part is a little bit tricky. I'm not exactly sure that I caught that corner well enough, but when I go back and do the out to the petals, I can catch that part that I didn't catch quite as well as I'd like to as I do that next step. So this one I'm going to go a little further. There we go. That's perfect. All right. Alrighty, let's see if that's good. That looks good to me. Ooh. See, that's what happens when you go a little too fast, is it goes a little, it can push the papers out of the way, so you're gonna go slower. But don't you see how this is like way faster than if I was sewing this by hand? All right, I'm gonna slide this last one in place. And now you can actually, I'm going to show you a little mistake here. So you can see what I mean about how sometimes when you do them by hand, it doesn't come out as perfect. So I'll deal with that when we get to it. It'll be fine. That's really only happening because there's paper in there, and once you take it out, it'll be gone. So I'm going to try and tuck that little previous thread underneath. And we are gonna, away we go. All right. So once you get the hang of this, you can totally see how this is really pretty fast. Now I'm gonna wait until the zig is on that side, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go right down this one right here. And now we really will be able to see the stitches, since I'm doing it in white and on red thread. And like I said, I'm going to zigzag back a little bit, and then wrong button. So you can see what that little tiny zigzag does. I'm going to trim this little thread right here, and then I will go down here. And since I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing if I think that's perfect. And you just are going to do the same thing that we did before. Now, I probably should have done a little back stitch at the beginning, but I'll do it here now, and we'll do it on the next one. And that's fine. My machine has, you know, a scissor stitch, so, or a scissor built in, so I can do that easily, but you would just have scissors or snips handy next to you as you do it. Oh, I kind of like it with the white center and the red petals. I'm gonna back stitch a little bit and just go slowly and make sure that you are actually hitting both sides. And there you go. So I know I got this question on the live. I'm trying to remember who it was who asked. It may have been Lena who asked. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But she asked if you could do any shapes, and you totally can. So I will show you an example as soon as we finish here, because I do want to show you what the finished piece looks like. Now, there are times where I have missed, a stitch or two where I didn't catch one side, and I usually handle that on a example basis. So if I can't, I'm still stitching and I can catch it, I just catch it as soon as I can. I go back and do it. However, if I noticed that I did that and I am already on to, say, the quilting stage, or I'm pulling out the papers, I just move on, and I just try to make sure that I will catch that when I'm quilting so that it doesn't come undone. All right, and this is the last part of the petal. Somehow I am sort of lining it up well enough that I don't have to adjust. The other thing that you can do if you have a spot that maybe is a little bit wonky, you can widen your stitch for just that one place, and that works pretty well too. So I'm just going to trim these little loose threads off. And all right, and there we go. What do you think? I think it's pretty cute. And if I did the stitching in red, you wouldn't notice it at all. So it would just completely blend in. This is one of the first blocks that I actually tested out this theory on, and it was from a Sizzix die that was called Rose Star. I actually pulled out the die. It's number 660093, and Rose Star, it's a 9-inch assembled block, and it's got the fabric cut out and the paper for each of the shapes, and this is what it looks like when you put it together. And I just thought this was absolutely stunning. I used clear thread in the top, and in some cases I just used purple, like right here, so that you can barely even see that I stitched it that way. And I think it just came out stunning. You can see that I just used a manila envelope, just some colored manila envelopes that had been written on, and here I used a Quilter Select printable wash away paper that you can, and it worked beautifully. So this is another option if you wanted to do this and you didn't want to take out the papers. You just leave this in, and it's got it's kind of a fuzzy paper. It's not really, it just feels like fibrous paper, and when it washes it just gets a tiny bit softer and you won't even know it's in there. Now that I think about it, I am pretty sure that is what I did for the Christmas stocking that I'm planning to cut out. So you can use this technique on absolutely any shape. As long as they fit together, you can sew them using this technique. And like I said, you can use clear thread at the top, or you can use a colored thread. This is a really great technique that anyone can do, even if your hands aren't as reliable or pain-free as they used to be, but you still want to get that English paper pieced hand sewn look.